time for me to leave.
Yeah.
I will have nightmares about my incompetence for years to come.
This is the Exploring the National Parks podcast with Dirt in My Shoes. My name is Ash, and I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. I think that the parks are best seen from the trail, and I'm here to make national park trip planning easy.
And I'm John. I carry the kids on the trails, I tell stories, and notice all the things that Ash doesn't care about much, like rocks.
Join us as we show you around America's spectacular national parks.
We're sharing our favorite places, fun facts, adventures, and misadventures.
And we'll even throw in a little trip planning.
Let's start exploring. One of my favorite running jokes in the TV show Community is how many dioramas they have to make for all of their classes.
In community college?
Yes.
Oh.
Grown-ups making dioramas just makes me laugh for some reason. And all of their classes, they're just like, oh, every time they get an assignment, the Spanish teacher's like, and for this next assignment, a diorama. It's just like the whole class. Oh, but it's just really funny. They always have dioramas. Well, I brought along a diorama in honor of today's podcast episode.
He does. He worked really hard on it, and it's sitting here on our table.
Yes. My sons and I read the Hobbit book several months ago, and it was incredible. It was a blast.
It was so cute. They felt it so acutely.
They did.
People died, and anyway, I won't give it away if you haven't seen the movie or read the book.
Yes, but we were talking about it every day while we were reading it, and well, one of my sons had a school project and he had to build a diorama for that school project. And he loved the story so much that he wanted to do one about one of the scenes of The Hobbit. And I won't give it away, but it's the opening scene.
Why can't we give it away?
Because we know people that started reading The Hobbit.
Oh, that's true.
Yes.
We've been on a crusade to get all third grade boys ish to start reading The Hobbit, because it's a really good entry level book into the Lord of the Rings.
Yes, it's so good. And so because we know people that have kids that are reading the book, I don't want to spoil it in case they're listening. So in case you've ever seen the third movie, or if you're like 2/3 of the way through the book, there's a scene, and I won't spoil it, but I'll just tell you a couple of the aspects of it. A town on a lake, fire, a giant red dragon, one man on a tower, and a single black arrow.
And John took this diorama project very seriously, which is why it's now sitting on his desk overlooking our recording of the podcast today.
Yes.
Because he's so proud of all the work he put into our son's book report project.
Yes, it definitely deserves at least a B+. But like I said, it's in honor of today's episode. And the reason it's relevant to today's episode is because the background that my son painted on this diorama, in the background of this epic scene looms the Lonely Mountain, standing tall above the lake and everything around it, rugged, magnificent, menacing even. Tall and powerful beyond compare, a mountain dripping with so much raw adventure that it could seduce even the most unlikely creature to leave his most comfortable armchair and head off into the unknown. The Lonely Mountain. Now, the Lonely Mountain may be fictional. Maybe.
That's still up for debate.
Exactly. But the focus of today's episode is cut from the same cloth. This mountain became the 4th national park, and it too looms over cities and towns, standing tall above everything around it. Rugged, magnificent, menacing even. Tall and powerful beyond compare, a mountain really dripping with so much raw adventure that it seduces unlikely creatures from all over the world to leave their comfortable armchairs in search of adventure. I'm talking, of course, about the one, the only, Mount Rainier.
Yes! I'm so excited. This is a national park that snuck up on me. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. The first time we went through the Washington parks, it was probably 6 or 7 years ago. And we got to Mount Rainier. And I mean, you can see it before you ever get there because it really does loom over this whole Seattle area.
Right.
But like when we got there, I hadn't felt that much awe in a long time.
Right.
So we pulled up in there and it was just like, holy cow, what is this place? And I can easily say Mount Rainier National Park is in my top 5 favorite national parks.
Definitely.
The mountain is phenomenal and everything centers around it. This 14,400 foot volcano.
Right.
And then you just have this beautiful oasis of forests and waterfalls and lakes surrounding it, all while you're looking up at this mountain thinking, this place could kill me at any moment.
Yes, exactly. It is not a dead volcano.
Yeah.
And
it's actually, they say it's probably one of the most dangerous volcanoes, I think, in the world, but let's go with the country.
Right.
One of the most dangerous volcanoes in America because of how glaciated it is right now.
Right.
It has a ton of glaciers on it. It's covered in glaciers. And so if it were to erupt, all of that would melt and just devastate the surrounding cities.
Right. Not to mention the lava.
Right.
You know,
no,
but
that's before all the lava comes in and ruins everything else.
Plus the dragon.
Yes, which is currently breathing in the crater of the volcano.
Right. We're just waiting for our time to go back in.
Yeah, it really is phenomenal. And what surprises me is a lot of people in the Seattle area have never even been to this park because they see the mountain every day. Right. Isn't that good enough, right? Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, that's Mount Rainier. Have you ever hiked it? You need to go hike it. It's amazing.
It is such a neat place to actually explore, to get on the trail and have a fun adventure on this place because it really will blow your mind. Every step you take on trails in Mount Rainier is every foot of elevation you gain is worth it.
Yes. So let's jump into exploring this amazing national park. I would like to start in the busiest part of the park.
That makes sense.
We'll sit there for a minute and make sure you know how to navigate this area and know what our favorite things to do are. We've been to Mount Rainier many times at this point because it's, like I said, it's one of my favorite parks. It's like, we have a few days. Let's pop up to Mount Rainier and do some hiking.
It's always on the list, especially in the middle of summer.
It is. It's just one of those places that calls my name. So I love going there. But let's start on the Paradise side of Mount Rainier, which is the southwestern side of the park, basically. This park isn't huge.
No.
And there's not that many roads going through it.
You have to go, because it can't go through it because the mountain's right in the middle.
Exactly.
You have to go around the edges.
Yep. So there's not a lot of driving and a lot of various areas of this park, but the main areas are incredibly busy, which is why if you're listening to this as we release it, they are making you have reservations in Rainier this year to get to these main areas. So that might not be true for years going forward, but for now, that's what they're having to do because these areas do get so busy. But the side we're talking about is Paradise,
which is an area that totally lives up to its name. It is absolutely idyllic in so many different ways. It is just so beautiful.
It is. Most people access Paradise from the Nisqually entrance or the town of Ashford. It's kind of the main gateway town right outside of this area. We usually spend at least a couple of nights in the Ashford area. We'll either be in Ashford proper or we'll be in the national park. There's a couple of lodges on this side. There's a campground. So a few different options here, but we always spend at least 2 nights in Ashford and on this side just so that we can get up into Paradise easier and before everybody else.
Right.
So that's very important to me.
Yes. Plus, there's a couple restaurants on that side that we really like. And so we've got to give ourselves some time to eat at those.
Yeah, so we'll stay in Ashford. We'll go to the Copper Creek Inn, which has a lot of blackberry stuff. I love this place. I love the blackberry butter.
Yes.
I'm addicted to the blackberry butter. So I will go to the restaurant and we'll eat the blackberry butter while we're at the restaurant on our rolls. And then we always get a couple dozen rolls and more blackberry butter to go.
Right.
Last time we got pie to go, which was a very good decision.
It was so good.
We got a whole pie instead of buying per slice. So
for each of us.
No, that would be so much pie. We could have done it.
We could have, and it would have been worth it. Every calorie, every bite, we would have burned it off in paradise anyways.
It's true. It's true. And then for breakfast, they have blackberry syrup on their pancakes and stuff. So anyway, we love the Copper Creek Inn. Wildberry is really good. That's a Himalayan restaurant. John doesn't like going there because the portions are kind of small, but the food is really good.
Right.
So if I don't have John with me, that's where I like to go.
Eat a granola bar first.
Yeah. And after. And then we also like the base camp, the Rainier base camp. They have pizza and live music. And this is the area also where a lot of climbers hang out.
Yeah.
So the eavesdropping is like really good. Love listening to people's conversations out here.
What a lot of people don't realize is that Mount Rainier is like a training ground for people that want to climb Mount Everest. A lot of people, they're spending some really epic, cool climbers hang out at this specific restaurant because they climbed up Mount Rainier this morning or something like that. It was pretty cool.
It's super cool. So those are a couple places we like to eat when we're staying in Ashford or on this side of the park. And then from Ashford, you go through the Nisqually entrance, which is one of those really cool Mount Rainier arch entrances that are just so iconic to this park.
I know. I want one over my driveway.
Yeah.
They're so cool.
They really are. So the Nisqually entrance is beautiful. As you're going in, you'll go under that arch. And then you'll drive and you'll drive and you'll be looking for the mountain and you'll be like, where is it? Why can I not see the mountain?
Right.
And it's because you're too close to it at this point and the trees are covering up your view and there's some smaller foothills, kind of. I don't know what to call them.
They're not, they're
not really foothills. It doesn't really have foothills, but there's little hills that are blocking your view.
There's
at this
smallish
point.
sized mountains as you get closer to Mount Rainier that will block your view. You can see Mount Rainier from far away, but there's this like middle ground where you don't see the mountain for a long time.
But keep your eyes peeled because you will see it a couple times as you drive along this road. But then you'll get to Longmire, which is the first main thing of interest really on this side. Longmire is a lower elevation. And so this is a good place to go hiking if you visit Mount Rainier too early in the season.
Right.
And all the higher elevation trails are snowed in still, which always happens.
Always.
But Longmire, you've got a couple trails right there. You've got a museum that's fun to walk through and see just the history of this area, the history of Rainier, learn a little bit about the park. So that's fun. There's a lodge right here. A really small one.
Yes, yes.
So there's a couple things you can do here. We'll usually spend an hour or two here later in the day. So we don't usually stop here on our way in because it's paradise or bust at this point.
You've got to get to that parking lot early.
Yep. So we keep driving and we continue on up towards paradise. Now, there are a few places you'll want to stop along the way.
Some of my favorite things about Mount Rainier is probably what you're about to say, but some of the best things that you can see is just waterfalls from the road.
Yes, I love the waterfalls.
Yeah, this place is just waterfalls all over it. When I said it was dripping with adventure, it's almost literally just like pouring with adventure because there's water pouring off the mountain everywhere. And you can see it just from the road as you drive, or easily accessible through trails and things like that. And so there's some really cool things like Christine Falls as you make your way up the road.
Yeah, that's really pretty. This is also where you'll find the trailhead for Comet Falls, which is the tallest waterfall in the park that you can access.
Yes.
There's taller waterfalls, but they are in the middle of the wilderness. You cannot get to them without bushwhacking and just having a terrible time.
Exactly. This is a really powerful, really beautiful waterfall that you don't have to climb on a glacier to get to.
Yeah, and it's 320 feet tall. It's a tall one. It's absolutely beautiful. this trail was a exercise in vulnerability for me. I don't know how else to put it, but I had a really hard time the first time we hiked this trail. I was just like having a really bad week, and I was really sad, and I was trying to hold it all in. It was just John and I hiking. We had left our kids with my brother, and we were hiking this trail, and it was hard.
Right.
So I'm sure I was already kind of making a face like, oh my gosh, if I have to go up another switchback. But I was also sad. And so my face, I'm sure, was very disfigured. Well, poor John, he didn't know what to do with me. He never knows what to do with me when I feel emotions.
I was trying to be supportive, and Ash was just having a hard day in general. It was not ideal situation for what was about to happen.
Well, so we're hiking up this switchback, and this guy is coming down, and he looks at me and he goes, wow, you look miserable. And then, like, he just keeps hiking. And I was like, you never know what people are going through, right?
Right.
You should be careful what you say to people. And I was trying to hold in my tears the whole time. And then he said that, and then I just lost it.
Right.
And John's like, oh my gosh.
And I picked up a rock and I threw it back at that guy. It's like, are you kidding me? Come on.
So I'm hiking up these switchbacks, and I'm just like, I just have tears streaming down my face because I just was so sad. I was in a really sad place.
Right.
Mentally. I was in a really beautiful place physically. But anyway, so I was feeling really sad. And the reason I share this story is because this is something we don't talk about a lot, but it is like a very important piece of why we love the national parks so much. And that's that I truly believe that nature heals. And being out in these beautiful places lifts my spirits so much. And that's a huge part of why we love to do what we do. And so anyway, the reason I share this is because I kept hiking, and we went around a bend in the trail. And at that point, both sides of the trail, like as far as I could see, were covered in my favorite wildflower, which is the avalanche lily. It's a beautiful flower. It's white, and it has like a yellow center. And it just kind of droops over. It's so pretty.
I know.
I love these flowers. I love them so much. And we see them all the time in Rainier, which is probably why I love Rainier so much anyway.
Right.
But at this point, like, this was the most that I've ever seen in one spot. There were thousands of these flowers.
Oh, yeah.
And I immediately, upon seeing those, just felt like God was giving me flowers.
Right.
To let me know that I was going to be okay. And that I would not have to stay sad. Basically, it lifted my spirits so much. And so, like I said, the reason we share is because this is a very important part, a very important piece of Dirt in My Shoes, and why we're out there is because nature really can heal your broken heart. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
I know. So I learned that on Comet Falls. Whether or not you believe in God, we do. And so it felt like he was saying, hey, I know you're here and it's going to be okay.
Right.
And he gave me my favorite flowers. So.
And I really appreciated that because I wasn't sure how to handle things super well.
John couldn't give me my favorite flowers.
I could give that guy a rock in the back of the head.
John never gives me flowers, for the record. I finally, this last Valentine's Day, told him, I want flowers this year, please. But it's not his fault. It's because we were poor for so long, and I just thought it was a waste of money for a long time. And so I just told him, if you buy me flowers, I'm going to be really mad at you.
So I never bought her flowers.
So he never bought me flowers.
But now I know that has changed, and I have adjusted. And I am really grateful for a field of avalanche lilies.
Yep.
That was great.
I know. I'll never forget that experience. So anyway, if you're feeling sad, go hiking. I truly believe that's one of the best things you can do is to get out somewhere beautiful and see all the beautiful creations around you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Anyway, but that was solidified in Mount Rainier on the Comet Falls Trail.
Yes.
Which I highly love, and I still do over and over because of that field of avalanche lilies. I'm like, oh my gosh, my favorite flowers. I know where I can find them.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, so that's that. And then you continue driving And then I think you get to one of John's favorite spots in the park.
Oh my gosh. This place, setting the stage real quick. The very first time we visited Mount Rainier, the weather did not cooperate with us.
It took 5 days for us to see the mountain.
Right.
And not even just the top of the mountain. You couldn't see it from the park. It was so cloudy.
It was crazy. We were like, I know it's up there somewhere, but I have no idea where it's actually at and if we're ever going to see it. But this specific spot, right past like some of these Comet Falls and Christine Falls, you come into this, it just feels like a rock field, basically, when you're driving through it. But it's called the Nisqually Gorge. And I remember stopping here, and we got out of the car, and we were kind of looking up the gorge. And we still couldn't see the mountain because it was still covered by clouds. But this was the first time when I kind of got a glimpse of how massive everything was. Because the clouds and the sun, like there were some light beams, almost like Lion King for a second, that kind of just beamed through this gorge a little bit. And I was just like, oh my gosh, we're like not even halfway up this mountain. And I just got a glimpse of what's up there. And I'm looking at this gorge and it's just huge. And oh my gosh, it was an amazing spot for me personally. Mm-hmm. And so this is a spot where you can really realize how small you are in compared to the mountain. And this gorge is massive. It's got just a wild river running through it. But take a moment to notice this as you drive past, because this is just one very small, massive gorge among gorges on Mount Rainier.
Yeah. Mount Rainier has so many glacier gorges.
Yes.
From these glaciers being down this far and clearing out all the rock and then receding up the mountain. So yeah, you've got water coming down. You've got big waterfalls. You've got beautiful glaciers and tons of rock from the moraine. Mm-hmm. At this point, you can't even see the mountain, or the top of the mountain. So it is pretty incredible to just stand there and be like, I am a speck.
Right.
I'm a speck in this grand scheme of things.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, probably just as an aside, but maybe some helpful information, to avoid what we had to do, where you get here and you can't see the mountain ever, we now do plan our trips for later in July, because we want to avoid, that's usually when things kind of clear up weather-wise, so you can have a better chance of seeing the mountains. The snow is generally melted off the trails, and so you have a better opportunity to experience the main areas of the park and see the mountain at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, Mount Rainier is so tall, it makes its own weather. Mm-hmm. So even if the skies around are blue, a lot of times you still can't see the very top of the mountain. Most of our pictures, I would say, are actually not being able to see the top of the mountain, but you can see the lead into the top.
Right.
And it still is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And so, as long as you can kind of get an idea of how big this mountain actually is, you'll be really happy you came.
Right.
Whether or not you get to actually see the very top or not.
Right.
But yeah, to your point, the biggest mistake that people make when they're planning their trip to Rainier is going too early in the summer. Mm-hmm. Because this park is so seasonal. In fact, it's even more seasonal than some of the most seasonal. Because I'm always telling people when they want to go to Glacier, the Going to the Sun Road doesn't open until usually the beginning of July or very end of June, beginning of July. And people are like, what? But it's summer in June.
Right.
We should be able to go. Rainier, I was under the same mindset the first time we went. I was like, okay, probably if we go at like the beginning of July, we'll be okay. And the roads are open. So you can drive through all of the roads in the park basically at the beginning of July. So we planned a trip over the 4th of July, which honestly was awesome.
It was great.
We loved 4th of July in this area. There's a cute little community that did fireworks, and you could see Mount Rainier in the distance behind the fireworks.
There's a Neil Diamond tribute band.
Yeah. So it was amazing. It was a great trip. However, we couldn't hike in any of the higher elevations. Everything was still completely covered in snow. The rangers were like, no, like you can't even get to Myrtle Falls, which is one of the easiest hikes up in Paradise, because there are snow bridges that are unsafe and you could die if you fall down into one of these. And so they were just like, no, you can't even hike out there. And we were so disappointed because we were there to hike. Yeah. And the trails were still just completely covered in snow.
Right.
Which we have learned since that's totally normal.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so now we don't even go to Mount Rainier. I won't plan a trip to Mount Rainier until the July 20s.
Right.
And I usually don't go in August. So it literally is, we are there the July 20s because the timing is so hard. But usually by that point, things are melted out enough to go hiking. And the wildfires haven't quite come yet, usually. And so it's just that you've got a really small window of time where if you want really good pictures and really good views and you still want to be able to hike everything, it's the July 20s.
Right. That's the perfect time.
So
It's the best time.
we've learned over all of our trips. Now it's just like, okay, well, it's July 22nd, which means we need to be in Rainier.
Right. Dad, let's take an impromptu trip to Mount Rainier. It's July 13th. Nope. We got to wait another week.
Early. For August 1st, too late. Wildfires are here. You're not going to be able to get good pictures.
It's guaranteed Canada's on fire right now.
Yeah. So anyway, it is very temperamental.
Right.
And that is the biggest mistake I think that people make. And like I said, we have made that mistake, but we don't make it anymore.
Right.
And our subsequent trips have been incredible.
Yes.
Like our pictures of Rainier are fantastic. They're phenomenal. They're some of my favorite national park pictures that we have.
Yeah.
They were all taken during the July 20s. So
Yes, it's very true.
okay, so speaking of the higher elevations, at this point you have finally made it to the Paradise area of the park. This is the main area where people want to come. There's a big parking lot here, but the parking does fill super early. And then there are a whole bunch of trails in this area, but we pretty much only come here for one trail.
The Skyline Trail.
It's a trail that we have hiked every single time we've been to Rainier.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of my favorite trails of all time.
It's so epic.
And it's a busy trail. That's what's surprising. Some of these busier trails in the parks, yeah, you'll still see me on them all the time because they're the best.
Yes, it's so good. And this is a hard trail as well.
It is, but I was surprised because I actually don't have all these numbers like memorized all the time, but it's 5.5 miles round trip. And I'm like, there's no way that it's only 5.5 miles round trip because it's so hard.
It feels so much longer.
And you're gone for a long time. We always take our sweet time. Granted, we take a million pictures on this trail when we hike it. And we also take time to sled down the trail on our bums because there's always snow.
Yes, if you go on the back side of the trail, even if you go in the July 20s, there's always at least one section where you can just dive down the trail and slide down and still be somewhat safe about it too, even though you're on a mountain.
Well, I mean, it's either that or walk really awkwardly through all the snow and you keep punching your legs through. And so we've just sit down and slide. John will belly slide. It's this particular part where after you get to the top, to the overlooks, and then you're heading back down. And we always hike this trail clockwise. So then we're heading back down. And that's where we always hit snow. It's like on the way back down on the backside of our hike. And that's really fun. Our kids love that.
It's the best. I almost want to bring one of those roll-up slides or sleds to try out. That would be really cool.
So, but the Skyline Trail, basically what it does, this is the part of the trail that people take to actually get up to Camp Muir on the mountain when they're climbing
the mountain. This is the way they go.
So you're actually hiking alongside people who are climbing the mountain,
yes,
which is cool. But it just takes you up and up and up and up to the point where it seriously feels like you can just reach out and touch the top of the peak.
Yeah.
You're so close and it's just towering over you. You're in its shadow, like the views and just the majesty you feel from this trail is unmatched.
It's crazy that the trail is so perfect that somehow you can continue to walk towards this mountain the whole time and see the mountain the whole time that you're going up, 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 and up. Like, it's amazing to me. And you're overlooking that same gorge that I talked about earlier continues up and you can see a giant waterfall falling from glaciers, landing inside this gorge. You're finally close enough now that you can see the blue too in the glaciers. And you can see crevasses and you can see so much of the detail and realize, oh my gosh, this place is just magnificent and it's so rugged and there's so much just these hanging glaciers. It's just incredible, but you do get to see it, and it does make the elevation easier.
It does. And you can use the excuse that you're taking more pictures whenever you need a break.
Right. Exactly.
Which is what I do. Like, oh, this is a new view of Mount Rainier.
Yes.
We got a little bit closer. Just let me get another shot while I am dying.
Exactly. There's
my
some nice benches along the way. If you overlook, so you can act like you really need to take those pictures and take a break at.
And the other excuse for stopping along this trail are the wildflowers, because this area has so many wildflowers.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely beautiful, and you'll see all different types. Be sure you stay on the trail. Do not be one of those people that goes out to get your picture, okay? You can see plenty from the trail, but that's another really good excuse to stop.
And maybe some marmots, jumping
we always
through the
see
wildfire.
marmots.
Yeah, sunning themselves on the rocks.
And lots of water, like John said. We've got creeks coming down. You've got giant waterfalls in the distance. You've got glaciers right above you. So the Skyline Trail is one of my absolute favorite trails in any national park. And it's one that we do in Rainier over and over again because it just brings me so much joy to be that close to the mountain.
Yeah, and I have two things about this trail. Number one, we do hike it clockwise because you can see the mountain as you're gaining the elevation. Number two, if you don't feel like you are able to do all of this elevation, don't feel bad about starting the trail and turning back.
Yeah.
You should at least start this trail, enjoy it for as long as you can, because you will have an amazing experience. And there's lots of people that do it, and there's no shame in starting it. And I've had enough. I think I'm good to go, and heading back to the parking lot and continuing your journey around the park. This is one of those trails that you just need to experience no matter what.
And also along that line is there are other trails right here that kind of parallel the Skyline route at the beginning. So there are some other trails that you can take that if you don't want to do that exact one, that you should look into some of those others that are a little bit less steep.
Right.
If you know you don't want to do the other one. They're all steep. You'll get on there and you'll just be like, oh my gosh, I'm dying from taking 5 steps. And just know that's true for everybody.
Yeah.
Even us who have hiked this trail a million times, every time we start, I'm like, why are we doing this again?
We're always huffing and puffing.
Yeah. It gets pretty steep. So anyway, but yes, definitely start it. That's our main thing that we do at Paradise. There are shorter trails. There's like the Nisqually Vista Trail, which is a good family-friendly one. So that's an option too. If you hike the Skyline Loop clockwise, then as you're coming off the mountain, as you're getting closer to the parking lot, then you'll get to Myrtle Falls, which is just the most perfectly placed waterfall in anywhere on earth. Like, I just am like, how is that water falling with Mount Rainier perfectly behind it? Perfectly.
Right.
So I love that waterfall. And I love being able to see that as we're nearing the end of the Skyline Trail. It's like another little treasure before you end. But if you don't do the whole Skyline Trail, you can just hike directly to Myrtle Falls from the parking lot and back. And it's not very hard. It's pretty flat. So that's another option as well. So start the Skyline, go over to Myrtle Falls, go over to Nisqually, do all 3 of those, or just hike the whole Skyline Trail.
Right.
That's usually how we spend our days up here.
And it's always the best.
Yeah.
You will be worn out, but it is always the best.
It truly is. It truly, truly is. So as we continue past Paradise, then you'll hit a couple more things of note. You've got Reflection Lakes, which if you've seen those pictures of the lakes with Mount Rainier reflected in them, that's that spot.
It's great.
It's pretty finicky because if there's any wind, it's like, oh, nope, no reflection at all.
Exactly.
And if you can't see the mountain, no reflection.
Yes.
We probably get a good shot once every 3 to 4 times we try.
Right. Otherwise, there's just a lake in front of it. It's not Reflection Lake.
Right. Which is still beautiful.
Right.
So that's there. And then you've also got, I really like the Snow Lake Trail along this stretch of road. It's a really good family-friendly option. You don't get Rainier views from Snow Lake, but you get views of Unicorn Peak, which is a really cool peak in this park.
Right.
The other mountains don't really get as much
Attention.
credit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like everyone's there for Rainier, but Unicorn Peak is really cool, and you can see that from the Snow Lake Trail, which is like 2.5 miles round trip. So that's a great option too.
All the mountains around Mount Rainier are like all of Michael Jordan's teammates.
Yeah. It's like, what's that called? Who's that?
That's a Scottie Pippen. That's Dennis Rodman. But really, we're here for MJ.
Yeah, it looks like a hill compared to the mountain. No, but
exactly.
There actually are some really cool other mountains in this park that you can see.
Exactly.
So, okay, and then continuing past the Snow Lake Trailhead, this is when you get into Stevens Canyon, which is a really cool part of the park because you're basically just cutting through the mountain with this deep gorge next to you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of big waterfalls, lots of water coming down. You still get cool Rainier views.
And one of the most frustrating aspects of this spot is the fact that it has incredible wildflowers, but you can't really stop because you're on kind of a windy mountain road. And your pictures would have a road in it anyways.
I know, the flowers are so good. If you want to take close-up pictures of flowers, if you can find a pullout along the Stevens Canyon Road and just walk for a minute, there are often just like all different kinds of wildflowers along this road.
Yeah, it blows your mind.
You could take a close-up and not get the road in your picture.
Yes.
Or you could just admire without trying to take a picture.
Right.
But yeah, it's hard to find pullouts to do that anyway. So we're always driving and we're like, oh my gosh, look at those flowers. And we can't stop.
I know. It's so true.
But yeah, that part of the park is really cool. And Stevens Canyon, it connects Paradise to the Stevens Canyon entrance and Ohanapikosh and Packwood, which is the town right out here. We typically, when we go to Rainier, we'll spend a couple nights on the Ashford side, and then we'll spend a couple more nights over by Packwood or Ohanapikosh or Sunrise, anywhere along that corridor, because now we are on the other side of the park, which isn't as busy as Paradise.
Right.
I don't know why people don't stay over here as much. I mean, they really do kind of focus, a lot of day trippers especially, will focus more on Paradise.
Yeah.
And so when you get to this side of the park, it's kind of like, oh, it's a little bit quieter over here.
Yes, it's true. But also, because it's quieter, I don't know exactly why, but this section of the park, leaving Paradise heading towards Sunrise, that is where Ash and I have had to help the most stranded people.
Stranded motorists. There's like no cell reception.
Yeah.
Very small pockets of reception.
Yes.
And a lot of dispersed camping between Ashford and Packwood. There's another road instead of driving through the park that has a lot of dispersed camping. That's where we found Gina.
Oh, Gina.
Who had driven her van. She was trying to camp for free, and she drove her van off into a camping area, quote unquote, that was terrible. And she got her van stuck, and we tried to help her, but it was a disaster.
Listen, I'm not known for being the most handy guy around.
He's not.
I'm not the least handy guy around, but I usually kind of I usually kind of describe myself as being the illusion of help. And
that's the perfect description. It's like he's always there pretending he's helping or trying. Like, it is the illusion. There's not actually help being given.
Right. Like, I have a big truck, but I don't have a tow strap. So unless the person actually has what they need, mostly I'm there for moral support, which was definitely the case for Gina. And I felt bad for her because she thought that her minivan was a Jeep.
Yes.
And
that turned into a very expensive free camping spot.
Yes. She looked off the highway, saw just off the highway a flat area with just enough space for her van, the perfect boondocking spot. But what she didn't fully appreciate was the 6-foot drop at a 70-degree angle as soon as you leave the highway. So when I got there, and her van fit perfectly in the spot that she was trying to get to, like a game of Tetris, but after trying to help her maneuver her van, I realized the only thing that could possibly get her van out was a giant spatula, getting a brownie out of the pan. So luckily, as we came to this conclusion that I was no help, somebody pulled up and was like, let me get you in contact with the tow truck. And I was like, perfect, time for me to leave.
Yeah.
It was nice to meet you, Gina. I will have nightmares about my incompetence for years to come.
Gina.
Oh, Gina.
Yeah, we definitely felt bad we weren't more help with that. The other person, somebody got stranded as you go north from Ohanapekosh up towards Sunrise on that highway there. Their truck overheated. They were towing a horse trailer and their truck overheated and they were trying to flag people down and nobody was stopping. We stopped because John is the illusion of help. But we were able to get her information and drive back down into Packwood where we had service and call someone to help her. But yeah, so just so you're aware, this is a dead zone for service. And so make sure your car is in good working order and don't try to boondock down a 6-foot shoulder.
Right. Make good decisions in this area. Very specific area where you need to make good choices.
Yeah, but going north, so the Ohanapekosh area is cool. You can camp there. You've got Silver Falls. We really like that trail. Grove of the Patriarchs Trail is right there, but it's closed as of now. Some flooding washed out the cool suspension bridge. Mm-hmm. And they said they're not going to fix it probably till 2027 is when they're going to start fixing that. And it's already been closed for a few years. Which
is crazy because I know a bunch of Boy Scouts that could take care of that.
Go rig up a suspension bridge.
Exactly.
So anyway, that area is pretty though. If we're staying in hotels, we'll usually stay in Packwood when we're on this side of the park. And there's a burger place, Cliff Droppers.
Right.
That's really good.
Yes.
It's a small community. There's not like a lot of options, but we really like Cliff Droppers.
It was so good.
So yeah, so we'll do that. And then the whole point really of us being on this side of the park this is when you get sunrise or bust.
Right. Exactly.
So your whole mentality is, okay, now we're on the sunrise side. Now we're just going to hit sunrise like crazy. That's why we're here.
And let me tell you something. If there was ever a place that could rival paradise, it's sunrise.
I still can't decide which one I like better.
I know.
I go back and forth over and over. When I'm just sitting there, like thinking about nothing, it's like paradise or sunrise. Paradise or sunrise. It still plagues me.
I know. It's like George or Kramer on Seinfeld. I just don't know which one. I love them both.
Oh my gosh.
Probably Kramer. But then George has that awesome speech about a whale. You know, there's just so many good things.
And I always think I make a decision. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, sunrise is my favorite. And then it's like, then we go back to paradise and I'm like, oh, maybe paradise is my favorite. Mm-hmm. So.
But we love sunrise because paradise, it's so picture perfect. It's like the family portrait of Mount Rainier, you know?
It's all dressed up and it looks all nice.
It does.
Clean and cute.
The sunrise part, it's
like the inner demon child who comes out during family pictures.
It's Jack from The Incredibles. You never know what you're going to get, and it just looks all wild. From some angles, it looks like a baby that's like turned into a fireball, and the other times it's like shooting lasers out, and the other time it's like multiplied, and you know, it's the crazy part.
I think that's why I love sunrise so much, though. It's because it's the rugged part of Mount Rainier. You get out there, and you can see the crags. And you see Emmons Glacier, which is the largest glacier on Mount Rainier. Mm-hmm. I think it's the largest in the lower 48.
I think so, too.
Don't quote me on that, but I know it's a huge glacier.
It's massive.
And so you see Emmons Glacier just down the whole side of the mountain from right there. Mm-hmm. And it does. It feels so much more wild to me than paradise. And so I think that's why I generally am like, oh, sunrise. You got to go to sunrise.
Yes.
This part of the park opens later than paradise. It stays snowier, longer. We always hit snow pretty much when we're hiking up in here. I'm in the July 20s. But yeah, I love sunrise so much. So when you get up there, and this is another area of the park that needs reservations as of right now, because it does get really busy. But you get up there, you park in this big parking lot, and then there are a bunch of trails that start from the parking lot. But what we pretty much always do,
I know.
I don't know why. It's like, why mess with a good thing when we already know what kind of views we're getting from these trails.
I know.
And how happy they make us.
I know.
We probably should try some new trails.
Well, it's like when I go to Olive Garden or an Italian restaurant and I'm looking at the menu and I'm like, I should try something new. And every time I do, I'm disappointed because I'm like Garfield. I just want lasagna. That's what I get every time. So when we go to Mount Rainier, I just want lasagna.
And in our defense, we've tried to get permits for like the Wonderland Trail and stuff because there is other stuff we want to do.
Right.
But it's impossible. So good luck with that, especially if you want to go in the July 20s. So anyway, but what we love to do is we'll park at sunrise and we'll start the Sourdough Ridge Nature Trail, which if you're not a hiker, but you want to get out of the car for a minute and walk around, do that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Right.
So underappreciated. We do the Sourdough Ridge Nature Trail, the first part of it, and then it branches off towards Frozen Lake. And this section of trail is like epic photos. You've got the rocky trail with Mount Rainier right there in your face.
Yeah.
It looks so cool.
Yes.
And so we'll hike out to Frozen Lake from there. And then a lot of people go up to Mount Fremont from here. Prove me wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. But like, why would you go away from the mountain at this point to get up to Mount Fremont when you could go to the burrows, which take you straight to the mountain?
I know. Doesn't make any sense.
We've never branched off to Mount Fremont. It's really popular trail, but I'm just like, I don't want to go that direction. I want to go this direction.
Right. That's the chicken Alfredo. And the burrows
Still
is
good.
Yeah, still good. But we want lasagna.
I know.
Everyone get lasagna.
I know. I just want to get as close to the mountain as possible. And you accomplish that by hiking the Burrows Trail.
Right.
And so from Frozen Lake, we go up to the Burrows. Typically, we'll go to Second Burrows, which is the more maintained part of the trail. If you go beyond Second, it gets a little hairy.
Right.
So we'll stop at Second. Mount Rainier is in your face. Boom, right there.
Oh man, like trip and fall and you fall into Mount Rainier.
Yeah.
But one of the coolest things too is these burrow mountains are kind of flat on top, and often there will just be herds of mountain goats up there ready to greet you.
Yeah. We've seen so many mountain goats up there.
It's so great. It's just like you pop up, the trail, suddenly you lift up, and suddenly you're in the Mount Rainier Safari, and you have all of these mountain goats just jumping around.
And marmots. There's a lot of marmots up in this area. But then, just like I said, Mount Rainier is in your face. You're so close.
Yeah.
Similar to the Skyline Trail. You just feel like you can reach out and touch it.
So
and
good.
That's what I'm going for when I'm in Mount Rainier. I want to reach out and touch it. So we pick trails that help us feel that way.
Yes. And so if you're looking at this as a loop, we do it counterclockwise.
We do. And most people, like on all trails, it says to go clockwise. We don't hike that way either, because I want those just epic Mount Rainier views as long as I possibly can.
Right.
And as you loop back around, so you hit the Second Burrows and then you go down and then you can take the loop down towards Shadow Lake if you're looking at a map. You'll hit this section of trail is epic. It's right along the cliffs. You can see Emmons Glacier right below you, so it's just phenomenal. And then you get to this viewpoint, which is like where all my favorite pictures of Rainier are, because it's a little bit craggy and it just looks so epic. And you've got the big glacier gorge below you with Emmons Glacier. And so I love that viewpoint. And then once you hike past that viewpoint and you're still heading down towards Shadow Lake, that's when your Mount Rainier views don't get as good. And so I don't mind having my back to the mountain at that point, which is why we hike it counterclockwise.
Exactly. So we do Skyline Trail clockwise, the Burrows Trail counterclockwise.
Yeah. We just like to go against the grain. It's all about the views for me. So it's like, why would you hike it the other way when, your back is to Rainier during some of the coolest views?
Exactly.
That's just my 2 cents.
Makes zero sense.
So then you'll hike around, you'll get to Shadow Lake, and then you'll hike back up to the parking lot from there. That trail, doing it that way, I think is like 6.5 miles-ish. Similar elevation to Skyline, maybe not quite as steep. So 2 really great day hikes. You got to give yourself 2 full days at least to do both of those trails and then see which one you like better. I promise you'll be sitting there at your office at work and you'll be like, sunrise or paradise? I just don't know.
It's so good. It's the hardest, well, maybe not the hardest, but it's really hard. You can't decide.
It's hard to decide. So that's what we love to do at sunrise. We go into the gift shop while we're here. That's usually where we buy all of our souvenirs.
It's probably the best gift shop in the park. It's
this
the biggest.
gift shop, I feel like this, I don't know if it's the biggest. Is it?
Think so.
I don't know. He might not be right.
According to John, it's the biggest.
This is where we've had the best luck finding Mount Rainier paraphernalia that actually has Mount Rainier, like the shape of Mount Rainier on it.
Right. Who wants to buy a Mount Rainier shirt with just generic mountain on the top with other mountains usually side next to it too? It's like, no.
That's not Mount Rainier.
No.
So we're very particular about that, and we've had good luck at sunrise finding John's shirts with actual Mount Rainier on it.
Exactly.
So that's sunrise. That's typically what we'll do up there. I also want to mention while we're in this area, leaving sunrise, cry a tear as you drive away.
Exactly. Now we're going to go get some spaghetti and meatballs or another type of item off of the menu.
Garden.
This is the breadsticks or the salad.
The other thing you can do on this side of the park, which is fine, it's fine. Tipsoo Lake, really pretty.
Right.
Great views of Rainier. You're just further away, which that's how I rank how much I like something at this park. It's like, how close does it get me to the mountain?
Exactly. However, because the mountain is still kind of the focus, it's acceptable.
It is. And it's really pretty. I love the Tipsoo Lake area. A lot of people really like the Naches Peak trail that starts from Tipsoo Lake. And I like that trail okay.
Right. It's
a really nice trail and you get beautiful views. But it's just like a peak at Mount Rainier for a minute. And I was just like, oh, I thought I was going to get more Mount Rainier.
It's the sampler at Olive Garden where you get a small piece of lasagna.
You get a piece of lasagna, you're like, I should have ordered the full thing.
And then it's like buttered noodles, a salad, breadsticks, and then like some type of Alfredo.
Oh my gosh.
Every time you're like, I wish I just got the full lasagna.
People really love that trail though. And I'm always like, yeah, but you're not that close to Rainier.
Yes.
That's always my issue.
I'm not sure you realize how many interesting experiences we've had at Tipsoo Lake though, Ash.
Oh, really?
We've had some very interesting experiences because we've visited at different times to get different types of pictures at Tipsoo Lake.
Yeah, I like Tipsoo Lake.
It's really
So we
pretty.
always stop there.
But there are two really funny experiences that I remember having at Tipsoo Lake, maybe three. The first one was, of course, an Instagram model photo shoot, which was pretty funny.
I love those. You gotta love me. Some Instagram influencers.
I love photo shoots when we find them because people are always wearing things you would never wear actually in that location on purpose.
Actually, if you got stuck in this park, you would die.
That flowing dress is not going to help you. Also, I love how it always makes you feel like you're the one doing something weird. Like you're seeing you're at a photo shoot and you're the one that's intruding.
Yeah.
It's really odd.
That's so true.
Number two, I'm pretty sure that we saw like a Saudi prince or something at Tipsoo Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Like all of a sudden, we're at this lake, we're kind of walking around it, and then like two black Suburbans pop up. Legit bodyguards get out and escort this little family kind of around the trail, and then they're there for like 5 minutes, and then they get back into the Suburbans, and then they're out. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was pretty interesting.
Who was that? How did we find out who that was?
Even I was like, dude, this is like a scene from Taken 4 or something like that. I'm looking in the trees, like, where are all the people with the machine guns? But then on the Natchez Loop Trail itself, that's when your brother and I
wrote your joke book.
Exactly. That's where the dream came from.
Maybe that's why I didn't like that trail that much. I listened to national park jokes for 2 hours straight.
Oh my gosh, we had some...
No, I'm just kidding. It was actually really funny.
We were spitting fire. Let me tell you something.
You were. That's where you made up the yoga one that I love.
Yeah, which national park is the best at yoga? Big Bend.
I know. That's what I got to listen to the whole time we were hiking that
like
trail.
2 hours of that. So good.
But we like that area. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Just the sampler.
Right.
You just get a little taste of Rainier versus Sunrise where it's boom in your face.
Yeah, man. Layer after layer of delicious goodness.
I mean, that basically is Mount Rainier National Park. Obviously, we don't have time to talk about everything. There are some other smaller roads that go into the park from the northwest side, Mowich Lake and Carbon River. So you can do that if you want to get away from crowds. When we're on this side of the park, another place we really like to camp, because you can camp at sunrise at the White River campground right there. But we have a bigger trailer that doesn't really fit in that campground. And so we have found we really like the Silver Springs campground. It's only like 15 minutes from the White River entrance to get up into sunrise. It's super close. It's a Forest Service campground. And that one works perfectly for being on this side.
There's actually some fun river access that we tried gold panning at.
Yeah.
And did not succeed.
Yeah. So we've stayed at that one a few times because that's just a really good location. And then if you continue following the road up and over, then you'll be in Enumclaw, which is kind of a gateway town to Rainier. I mean, it's close-ish.
Right.
But we generally do try to stay a little bit closer to sunrise so we can get in there before it gets too busy.
Yes, it's true. Depending on what side you're coming from and like where you're at in your trip, it's like paradise or bust or sunrise or bust.
Yeah.
And it's like from either side.
Yeah. We do both, and we split our lodging so we can do both.
Yep.
And so we're perfectly positioned to get in there before everybody else.
Yep.
It makes a difference on the trails, too, because we are hiking busier trails in general because they're the best ones. And so we love to get in there early, which is why we'll split our lodging, because you don't want to be driving to sunrise. It takes forever to drive to sunrise from like Longmire or Ashford.
Oh, my gosh.
It takes so long.
You'll never get parking. I swear.
Unless you leave at 4 a.m.
Plus, a lot of times the people that you start hiking with on the trail are the people that you're with for the next like 2 hours.
Yeah, you keep seeing the same people. So the less people you see when you start, the better, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And I don't have to keep playing leapfrog with the same people all day.
Right. Exactly. You have a better chance of being alone on the trail, or at least having larger gaps.
Which is so important to me. So anyway, but that's Mount Rainier National Park. Again, one of my top 5. I love this one. I love this one so much. Visit in the July 20s if you want to see us, or if you want to be there at the best time. And your task for today, I think, needs to be sunrise or paradise.
Yeah.
Paradise or sunrise. We'll post pictures of both on the Dirt in My Shoes Instagram or Facebook page, so you can go see what they both look like. And you tell us, even if you've not been there, which one do you prefer? Just based on the pictures.
Right. Mount Rainier with or without makeup.
Yeah. Demon child or family pictures.
Exactly.
But thank you for exploring Mount Rainier with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review. We read through all of those and greatly, greatly appreciate them. Thank you so much, and we will see you out on the trail.